When Diana structured her estate to ensure Prince Harry received his inheritance, she wasn't simply being a thoughtful mother. She was orchestrating a strategic act of emancipation. She understood, with the clarity that comes from lived experience within the gilded cage, that financial independence would be Harry's shield against the very mechanisms of control that had ensnared her. By securing his own wealth, separate from the firm's purse strings, she eliminated their most potent lever, the threat of financial exile. This wasn't paranoia, it was prescience. Diana had watched the machinery of royal obligation grind away at individual agency, had seen how dependence becomes compliance, how those who control the money control the narrative. She wanted Harry to have choices, real choices, not the illusion of choice that comes when your livelihood dangles from someone else's fingers. And perhaps most remarkably, she foresaw the reputational quicksand that would later plague the institution. The dubious donors, the proximity to figures like Epstein, the murky Russian connections that would eventually surface in royal financing scandals. By giving Harry his own foundation of wealth, she gave him something far more valuable than money itself. She gave him the option to walk away with his integrity intact, to say no when the family's compromises demanded his complicity, to build a life that wouldn't require him to look the other way when the gilded doors opened to admit the morally bankrupt. Diana's financial foresight, protecting Harry's independence. Diana understood funds that so many family members relied upon to maintain their lifestyles. Diana had watched how financial control kept people in line, how it silenced dissent and forced compliance. And she was determined that her son would never be trapped in that gilded cage. Diana's foresight, shielding Harry from the shadows. The royal family had historical ties to controversial financial sources that Diana understood all too well, connections that lurked in the gilded corridors of power and threatened to taint anyone who got too close. Russian connections posed reputational and ethical risks, the kind of murky entanglements that could compromise a prince's integrity and bind him to obligations he'd never agreed to. She wanted Harry insulated from these problematic relationships, protected from the Epsteins and oligarchs and shady financiers who'd always found ways to curry favour with the monarchy, their money buying access and influence in exchange for the palace turning a convenient blind eye. By ensuring he had his own inheritance, Diana gave him something more valuable than wealth. She gave him the freedom to say no, to walk away, to never be beholden to the questionable benefactors who'd long orbited the family like moths drawn to a dangerous flame. Diana's prescient protection of Harry's independence. In the rarefied air of wealthy circles, where champagne flows as freely as insider information, the line between respectable society and genuinely dangerous individuals has always been perilously thin. Diana understood this better than most. She'd watched it play out in real time, seen how easily proximity to power could mean proximity to predators. She knew that financial independence wasn't just about Harry having spending money or a nice cushion. It was about giving him the power to walk away from rooms he shouldn't be in, to decline invitations that came with invisible strings attached. With his own money, Harry wouldn't need to smile politely at donors whose fortunes came from dubious sources, wouldn't have to shake hands with men whose names would later appear in unsealed court documents. Diana had seen enough to know that the networks of wealth and influence could entangle even the most well-intentioned royals, and she wanted her son to have something the institution had never truly offered. The choice to say no, to vet his own associations, to build a life where his circle of trust was determined by character rather than convenience or institutional obligation. Diana's financial foresight, securing Prince Harry's independence. Her inheritance provided Harry with a safety net beyond royal finances, a cushion that meant he'd never have to come crawling back with his hand out, never have to compromise his values for a stipend. He could maintain his lifestyle independently if needed, and God knows he'd need it, wouldn't he? Once he started asking the uncomfortable questions and challenging the status quo that the firm held so dear. The money represented her trust in his judgment and character, her belief that he'd use it wisely, that he wouldn't be corrupted by it the way she'd seen others corrupted by their dependencies and their debts. She knew what it meant to be financially beholden to the institution, how it stripped away your autonomy piece by piece until you were just another cog in their well-oiled PR machine, smiling on command and keeping your mouth shut about the things that mattered. This wasn't just an inheritance, it was her final act of protection, her way of ensuring that at least one of her sons would have the freedom to choose his own path. Consequences be damned. Diana's prescient gift, a mother's shield against royal corruption. Diana wasn't just dividing assets when she structured her inheritance. She was reading the tea leaves, anticipating scandals that would mettle the institution decades after her death. She saw what was coming, an act of love and protection that spoke to everything she understood about the institution her sons would inherit. She ensured her son would never be trapped by circumstance, never forced to bow and scrape for an allowance, never made to silence himself because the purse strings were held by those who might wish him compliant. Her foresight shaped the trajectory of his entire adult life in ways that have only become clear with time. She not aberrations, but patterns. Diana knew that independence meant more than palaces and titles. It meant the freedom to walk away, to speak truth, to choose a different path entirely. That inheritance was her final insurance policy, her way of making sure that when the moment came, and she somehow knew it would, Harry would have the means to make the choice she herself had never quite managed.